This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and sociocultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us. This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and sociocultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us. Itafa, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein, for having me again.
Great. Itafa is a human rights advocate, and Itafa, as you know, currently Ethiopia as a whole and the Oromia regional states in particular are under great turbulences, and they are characterized by war, corruption, inflation, drought, and famine. And in addition to this, aggravating this situation, there has been turbulences in terms of religion, particularly in the Orthodox Church. How do you see these turbulences, and how do you define it?
Thank you, Dr. Hussein. That is a great question and a very current and hot topics that is really happening in the country. And it's a very fundamental and a very important question of the Oromo Orthodox Church, or Oromo believers of the Orthodox Church. Really, first of all, like you said, there's a lot going on in Oromia region, whether it is corruption, inflation, famine, people dying due to the lack of food and basic necessity. I think, as you know, the whole Ethiopian we have new incidents almost by the day or every other day, that to the point we're almost forgetting people who are dying in many areas of Oromia region. That being said, right now there is a, like you said, great turbulence in Ethiopia, especially in Oromia region, in the southern nationalities, in regards to the quest of the people to worship in their own language, in their own cultural context, and talking to their own God in their own language, and in confessing their faith in their own language. So what is happening here is really the long-standing belief in the policy of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church that has really impacted mostly the Oromos in the southern nation in nationalities when it comes to how they practice their faith, how they worship in their in the house of God, in the policies of the leadership of the Orthodox Tewahedo Church, which is mostly dominated by people from one region, mostly from the Amhara region, who made the policies for the last few decades, or many decades for that matter, dictating how people worship, dictating how people in what language people worship, and dictating in what cultural context people, nation, and nationalities worship. So what is happening here is that the Oromos, I'm just going to focus on Oromos, where the most of the turbulence is going on right now, is the fundamental question. The leaders of the Oromo Orthodox Church, or the Oromos within that structure of the Orthodox Tewahedo Church, have been requesting the leadership of Orthodox Tewahedo Church, Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, for years, for the last many years, especially intensified in the last 4 years, requesting that they really want the church to be accommodating, the church to be restructured. They've been requesting that there is a lack of services in Oromia region, services in general, and also particularly services in the language that the people understand. So this is really a very, it's not a complicated request. It's not nothing to do with politics. The leaders of the Oromo leaders within this church have been asking the church so that they can teach, preach in Afan Oromo, and do worship in Afan Oromo, and also help the believers confess their faith in their own language without a translator. What has been happening for many decades in that church is that in all Oromia region, people have been confessing their faith through translators because of the church, through translators, because of the church policy that says one country, one language, one flag, one whatever policy that have dominated the nation for many years. Even with the subsequent changes of government and system and all that, this church maintained that dominance in policy, not able to adjust to the current need of the people and desire of the people to worship in their language, to worship in their own cultural context. So the Oromo leaders, whether they are the bishops or archbishops within the Orthodox Church, have been asking to translate the books, the teachings into Oromo, translate the worship into Oromo, teach the people into Oromo, accept and receive the translation in the people's confession in Oromo in the church. Straightforward refuse this and citing that it is more of politically motivated, racially motivated, is kind of trying to destroy or damage or separate the church. So it finally it got to the point where those Oromo leaders within the Orthodox Church have said this is enough. We have the right to worship in our language. We have the right to do it in Afan Oromo in Oromia region, which is supported by the constitutional rights and the fundamental rights of the people. So that is what pushed to the separation of the Oromo Synod or the Oromia Synod, Orthodox Synod, and the establishment and restructuring within that church.
Thanks so much. I think the question goes beyond the use of language, because many people argue that the Orthodox Church clergies, not the religion actually, the Orthodox clergies have been dominating the entire political and economic system of the nation under the banner of the Orthodox Church, and they tend to promote like one language, one religion, one culture, and sometimes one flag and so on. So in this regard, I think in spite of the turbulences that we have been observing, there is also a tendency of talking to each other and reaching into agreement. And do you think that those arguments, those discussions will lead to compromising these fundamental questions that goes beyond the use of Afan Oromo?
Yep, I guess, like you said, at this point, this is beyond just a request to teach or preach or confess the faith in Afan Oromo. Now, there is a lot going on within that church. So the Orthodox Church have been considered as the state religion for many years in their own mind. It started way back from Silas Selassie or Menelik II, and all that, where really the kings, the emperors, or the before Haile Selassie and all that struck a deal with the church to work together in tandem in order to expand territorial regions. So the church have been part of the government because they have both strike a deal that says the church would help the government or the emperors to continue expand the territory and take over the land, and then share whatever is gained, whether it's the land or the resource, share with the church one third of whatever is gained or attained or achieved or colonized, to share with the church one third of the portion. So that system continued almost all the way to Haile Selassie and the Derg regime. But I think from what I read, the Haile Selassie and Derg regime tried to really put a stop to that, but they weren't able to do it, because at that point the church is really deep rooted into the system, into the government system, to the point both of those, the Haile Selassie and the Derg, couldn't do it, so they have to kind of continue that relationship with the church. So I think at this point the church is really, here is the question: why does the church stand against for people to really practice their faith in their own language? If the church's mission is just to preach the gospel, bring if their mission is a great commission, which is bringing God's saving grace to the people, why do they want to not teach the people in their own language? Unless the church have a different mission other than religion. So I guess that is where now the big issue is, where people are saying the church is not really doing what the church is supposed to do. So let's say the clergies claim that they are the messenger between God and the believers. They are the messenger between God and believers, but they're really failed in their job in a way that they're not taking the message from the people and pass it to God, or taking the message from God to the people, because they can't even hear what the people are saying. People can't speak the language. If you want to if you are a messenger between God and the people, you should hear what the people are saying to pass it on to God. So, or you should hear what God says to you and pass it to the people in the language that they understand. That is what you do. If as a clergy, that's what you do. But this is not the case for the Orthodox Church. To be honest, the Orthodox Church doesn't, and the clergies within the Orthodox Church for decades have not been doing what the church is supposed to do. It is more of expansion, land grab, exploiting the resource of Oromia, and not serving the people. The main complaint from the members of the church in Oromia region right now is that they're not receiving service, in particularly not even whatever service, the little service they're not getting in their own language. So the church is using the resource, the money, the land from Oromia region, but not even serving the people. So what happened here is that two things. What the clergies are complaining is that in the last many years, about more than 10 million of Orthodox Church followers in Oromia region have converted into Protestant evangelicals, because those denominations or those religions have been tailoring the teaching in the faith in the Oromo language and also in the Oromo cultural context. So what these leaders are saying, we're losing millions and millions of members because we're not teaching the word in their language within the cultural context. And the other complaint from the leaders are that 84% of the synod leaders are from Amhara regions within the clergy council. That is according to the Archbishop of the new Oromia Synod. 84% are from Amhara region, specifically, predominantly from Gondar region. So the structure, the leadership structure of the Orthodox Church is completely and totally controlled by one group, and particularly and specifically from one region, to the point that the Archbishop, Abuna Matthias, is paralyzed and can't make any decision. He can't, because 84% of these clergy councils are controlled by people from the same region. So the Archbishop at this point is really paralyzed, not able to do anything, not able to make any decision. This is the situation. Really, it's not about language now. It's more of the economy. The church always got 1/3 of what the colonial system have been colonizing and taking from nations and nationalities, and built its economy and it is pocket with the resource from this area. So really it is becoming more of political and more of economic issue than a religious issue.
Thanks so much. That's great reflection. And as you said, the question by the Oromia Synod goes beyond Afan Oromo, the use of Afan Oromo. That's what's one of the key questions. But it goes beyond that. Those questions are related to politics. Those questions are related to economy. Those questions are related to the structure that has been there for, if you like, centuries. And on the other hand, the Orthodox clergy, the old one, claims that the Orthodox Church by itself is a nation. And if they tend to question issues like using own language, issues that are related to critical questions in relation to controlling politics, diplomacy, economy, what have you. And their major concern is disintegration of the nation. Do you see any association between using Afan Oromo, for instance, and the possibility of disintegration of the nation? What is the sense of that?
I think the first thing is the misinterpretation of nation. What is nation in their own interpretation? Is nation just an Orthodox, or are we talking the nation of Ethiopia? Obviously, if we're talking about nation, we're about talking Ethiopia as a whole, which actually Orthodox Church is not the majority. If you look at the census that was done from 1984, 1994, and 2007, right? Those Ethiopian census. The Orthodox faith, religion is really declining at alarming rate. Like I said, especially in Ethiopia, if you look at the 2007 census, the Orthodox followers decreased from 54% down to 43%. This is back in 2007. Ethiopia as entire nation, it declined from 53 to 43, 54 to 43%. This is actually even way higher if we take Oromia. It could be almost down to 20 and 30% in Oromia region for the Orthodox, the number of Orthodox believers. Orthodox believers are not majority in Oromia. Muslims, Protestants, and others are the majority. To be honest, so how is that now we're defining the Orthodox as a nation? No, it is not a nation. That is where the wrong interpretation is. Orthodox Church is just a single religion in Ethiopia, as in Protestant, as in Islam, as in other religion like Ifatas. Other than that, defining themselves as a nation is the flawed within their own definition. They're not a nation. They are just one religion in Ethiopia. They're not a majority. They're not, for decades and decades, they controlled the power, they controlled the country, but this shouldn't continue. That is what Oromia Orthodox churches are saying. We're religion, we just want to teach the gospel, we just want to reach our people in our own language. They don't want to fall into that kind of definition. So that is a number one. The nation, they are not a nation. So if the Oromia clergies decide to establish their own synod, their own archbishop, and want to do their own, there is nothing to worry about, because, I mean, it is not a nation. I don't understand the definition of a nation. It's just a religion. So the mere fact that they're just really using that word is wrong. So honestly, there is nothing that will happen if the church, the Tigray, have established their own now. Nothing happened. The nation didn't disintegrate. The nation didn't break up. Nothing happened. Actually, the archbishop, all the leaders of this Orthodox Tawahedo, they didn't even care, because there is no resource in Tigray. There isn't much resource that they will exploit. There isn't much land they can grab. There isn't much a lot of money that they can grab, but they know Oromia is their life resource, their life source and life resource, where they exploit, grab the land, exploit the resource, and pocket the money for their individual use. They generate these millions and millions and billions of money from Oromia region. But if you look at what has the church done in Oromia region? Did they even open one school in Oromia region, one hospital in Oromia region, any charity in Oromia region? No, all they do is exploit, grab the land, take the money from the poor, in the pocket, the clergies, the higher ups pocket the money, and the poor continue to suffer and can't even worship in their own language. So no, there is nothing to disintegrate. They're not a nation. They are just one religious institution. It's even really hard to call it a religious institution, because what they have done for the last few decades is more of political and keeping the imperial system in place. So
I agree with that. The fact that they tend to equate Orthodox Church with being Ethiopia or a nation is a fallacy for me, and that is disregarding the other religions in the country, and that is disregarding the question of nations and nationalities. That's, you see, dreaming the past. It's not more than that. And I usually see, I mean, religion, equality of religion in Ethiopia is not there. That's why they tend to keep on their domination in terms of politics, in terms of economy, by controlling the structure of that church. And I do agree with that. Do you have something to say on this?
Yeah, I guess what the fact they have to accept and to live with is that they're not majority, and they're not the religion of the country. It's not government. They're not anymore. The law of the land, state and religion.
They are not majority. The fact that they captured the structure of that institution for long, and the attachment between the state and that church was very strong, and they tend to keep that attachment and the power of controlling the state, the government, all through.
Yeah, exactly. That is the thing. How they are very strong, and they have very strong hold still. That is why really the nationality has to start taking charge of their own region, their own churches, and not controlled by the people who are trying to exploit and continue to grab the resource and the land of the people. So the government, the Abiy government, was right in saying that we're not going to interfere, and he is right in saying that the right for the Oromos to worship in their own language is not the right that is granted by government. It's their fundamental right. It's God-given right. So he said he can't tell any nation not to worship or do their own, confess or practice their own faith in their own language, in their own cultural context. So the government has to really either continue to support the Oromia Orthodox Church, or stay out of the way and let the people make their own decision, which we are seeing with a huge support and a predominantly a very positive in Oromia region, that the clergies are establishing the Oromia Synod, which will bring the needed change, structural change, leadership change, and more linguistical change, cultural change into that church. So this needs to be supported, in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church has to understand the fundamental rights of the people to decide whatever they want to decide. And if they claim the churches that are built in Oromia belongs to them, they are wrong, because those churches were built on the land of the Oromos, the farmers. Those churches are built by resource of the farmers and the Oromo people. So they don't have any claim over it. There's nothing, a single dime that they brought into Oromia to build the church. People built the church. with their own resource, with their own money, and they have the right to take it. They have full right to take it because it is their money, their land, and their resource. So the Orthodox Tewahedo Church need to understand that those time of domination, those time of controlling, exploiting is over, and they can't continue to do that. It's very interesting the fact that even since the EPRDF came to ruling, and also there is a new federal system. With the federal system in Oromia region, the official language is Afaan Oromo. The cultural is Oromo culture, but this church remain to continue to practice, preach, and teach in Amharic. Even against the federal system that grants these people to learn, to go to school, to do their business in their own language. This church outright rejected that federal system and did its own thing as if it is its own government. So those days really have to come to an end, and they have to realize that.
Yeah, it's always difficult to unlearn what you have learned. I think the problem is they are not in a position to unlearn because they want to stay in that old empire, and that's what's happening. And I hope there are discussions going on, there are kind of agreements. I hope and we hope that should not be at the expense of the Oromo people once again. That's my remark. If you want to say something on that before we continue our discussion, you can say on that.
Yeah, I think the key question is how this is a fundamental right. This is the right question. The Oromia Synod needs to be established. The Oromia can have its own clergy, its own archbishop, and continue to form its own structure. It should do. It should. They shouldn't be back of this, what they have started. They should fully forge ahead and establish their own synod that will grant them to worship in their own language, to worship in their own cultural context, to have their own leadership structure within their own region. There shouldn't be any reason why the clergies and the bishops are assigned from Gojam, assigned from Gondar, who don't understand the culture of the people, who don't understand the language of the people. They are not a service to Oromo people. There shouldn't be any clergy or a bishop from Gondar and Gojam in Oromia region. To be honest, what is the service? What are they going to do? You can't understand the people. You can't do anything. They can't continue to do this. This needs to stop, and the Oromos need to be served by Oromo clergies, bishops, archbishops, and they need to continue to do this. Okay, if even there is an idea of coming together and reconcile, I just don't understand on what ground are they going to reconcile, because this is a fundamental question of the people who have been exploiting the Oromo people in the name of religion. The question is, they are saying, we would like to continue to exploit you. And the people are saying, no, this needs to stop. You can't continue to exploit me. You can't continue to exploit my land, exploit my resource. I want to own my own church, practice my own faith in my own religion. On what ground are you going to reconcile these people? Are you going to say to the exploiters, or exploit less, and then to the victims, just allow them to, they're going to exploit you less, just allow them to continue? I don't see the ground, to be honest. This need to stop. They can establish their own synod and structure their own clergy structure and run their own churches. So there would be, I talked about this before, there would be going to be a lot of negotiations and trying to get them back into the system, and then later destroy them. Then the clergists and the bishops and the have to be very careful. Any negotiation they make is going to have a very lasting impact on the political, economic, and religious aspect of all Oromos, in the political aspect of all Oromos. They have to be very careful. Whatever agreement, negotiations they make with the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church is going to really make or break Oromo's aspiration or Oromo's cause for freedom and Oromo calls for free in worship in their own language, whether it's political, whether economic, it will have a lasting consequence. So I ask the new leaders for the Oromia Orthodox Church to be very careful in the decision, in the negotiation that they make. That this will have all, like I said, political, economic, religious, and every impact on the nation. So I guess the only way forward for them is different structure, different leadership, but they can have collaboration. They can have relationship going forward on a mutual agreement, on a mutual understanding, and on a separate leadership, as it happens in other religions. For example, there is a collaboration and relationship between Protestant churches like Mekane Jesus, or Ala Hiwat, or Masarat Christos. They have collaboration and relationship to work together while they have their own different structure, different institutions. So I think the only way forward is now Tigray have established their own, Oromia should establish, the Southerners establish their own, the Amara establish their own, and they can have, as an Orthodox church, they can have a partnership and work together around common goals. Other than that, bringing back those bishops back into the Tawaido, Orthodox Tawaido Church is going to have a very negative consequence going forward.
Thank you. If the attempt is to solve the problem, basically, fundamentally, there should be restructuring, as you said. There should be a kind of paradigm shift, because you can't continue living the old way, and things are changing, and there are questions of nations and nationalities, there are questions of equality, there is a question of the constitution in that nation. So there should be a paradigm shift in that specific institution. It can't stay within a kind of island in which it can operate the old way of doing it. So I believe there should be paradigm shift. If paradigm shift is there is going to be restructuring, then change, then progress, then perhaps unity and development could be achieved. Otherwise, it's very difficult to keep on the same way, doing the same way. With this, let's shift to the other part of our discussion. As I clearly indicated in my introduction part, there has been extensive and very destructive war continuing, particularly in Oromia, and in general terms in Oromia, and particularly recently the war was launched in Wollo region, on Wollo Oromos, to single out. What's happening in Wollo or Wollo Oromo is like a targeted attack, killings, and destruction of property. How do you see this, and why such ruthless attacks are there, and whom do you think are responsible for this?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Wollo Oromos continue to suffer a brutal attack, in a siege and all that. These have been there for many years, even in the past. I guess the Wollo Oromos have, squashed between the Amara region and the Tigray region, and everybody trying to take a piece of that area. But this led us in the last 4 years. What have been happening on Wollo Oromos is really, really very unfortunate events that have been happening there. People are killed within the cities. You have seen how many of them pulled from the truck and on a broad daylight, shot point blank by Amara Fanos, and actually orchestrated and organized by Amara regional state. So that is exactly what is happening. I guess what they have been trying hard is two things: either it is to kill them as much as they can and try to push them out of that area so that they can bring their own people and take over the land. I guess that is the big thing that the Fanos in the Amara regional state has been doing. But the Wollo Oromos have been strong at fighting and really pushing back and staying on their land. Their hope was to cause for the people to leave the region so that they can control the region. One big thing you really learn from these Fanos and Amara regional state is they always want to displace people. They don't want to even capture and rule the region. Their wishes are to displace people, get everybody off of the land, and take over the place and bring settle their own people on the land. So that is what they tried in Wallagga. Three cities were burned down in Wallagga region, and the people were displaced. If it wasn't for Oromia regional forces and all that to push them back, that was their main agenda, to bring and settle those people in those fertile lands and take over the land. That is exactly what is happening. What they have been saying is they want the people to leave. They want the Wollo Oromo to leave that region, and that special Oromia region shouldn't be existing. And that land 100% should be controlled by Amaras, and they want to settle their own people on that land. And the Wollos are fighting back. You know, all Oromo knows that Wollo Oromos are the most brave and they're strong fighters. They won't relent. They won't give up their land. They will die on their land. That is how they are. Honestly, they are the proud of the Oromo nation. The Wollo Oromos are the proud of our nation, who always stood their ground and fought back all the wars from the north and from the Amara region, from up historically from Tigray region too. So what is happening there is really to displace people and to grab the land. And who is doing this? The Fanos in the Amara regional state. This is clear. It's not hidden. It is not. They're not even camouflaging or anything. They are straight on a broad daylight. They go into the region and they start the fight. So, but the Wollo Oromos are really still strong. They are still fighting. They're not giving up. They're not going to give up. Historically, they fought back, and they maintained the land. And they're going to continue to do that.
Thanks so much. What do you expect as an Oromo? Do you expect some kind of support for them, or what should be done?
At this point, I think when it comes to the war in Wallagga region that started by the Fanos in Amara regional, the Oromia regional government, Oromia national forces have interfered to some degree. A lot of them were killed too. We would like to see similar response in that area. One, the Oromia regional state should advocate for these people. These are Oromos in that area. But you and me know that we don't expect a lot from those guys. They rarely act, and they only act if it promotes their own political agenda. So it is not about people's life. It is not about life lost. It is usually the PPs of calculated political agenda that they only do it if it promotes or it helps their political narratives. But honestly, they can interfere. They can help. They can at least push back on Amara regional forces or government, saying that this kind of killing should stop, and especially the federal government too. But what is expected from us as an Oromo? We need to continue to support. We have supported Wollo financially, Wollo Oromos before. Was it enough? Was it even close? No. Honestly, we're not doing what we're supposed to do as much as we're supposed to do to support them so that they can stay put, fight back. As Oromos, whether we are back home in Oromia or here abroad, we should stand with Wollo and support them financially with everything that, with all means that we can support them so that they can stay put and stay on their land and continue for generations to come. So really, as Oromo, we need to stand with Wollo Oromos, with Wallagga, with any land grab and exploitation war that is waged on Oromia region and other regions by Fano Amaras and actually supported by Amara regional state.
Yeah, we just singled out the Oromo, the Wollo Oromo. Otherwise, the problem is everywhere in Oromia, particularly in Wallagga. And the whole idea is for land grabbing, for not for, you see, addressing the problems. It's a kind of searching for land, pushing people out of that region or that area, and that is literally impossible. And I think the Oromo people should stand together, and the government should also act accordingly. The next point is repeatedly I've been discussing with a number of advocates, including yourself, and now still the problem is there. It's about drought and famine prevailing in Oromia region, and currently there's serious drought, and you can call it famine in Borna, Guji, lowland areas of Bali, Harar, and southwest RC, and so on. And these things are continuing, and perhaps the lion's share of the problem is due to the war, the ongoing war in that region, in Oromia region, and the attention given to this problem by the government and the international organization seems lacking. How do you see this problem?
Yeah, I think, you know, disaster happens everywhere in the world, right? Whether it is natural disaster, famine, drought, hurricane, earthquake, it happens. And we can't stop it, right? The dry and famine comes from the dry. People can't farm and crops and cultivate and have food. The key is that the big problem with Ethiopia compared to other countries and nations is that the issue of preparedness. As a government, there is no good structure in place that really respond to these disasters when they strike. Disaster happens in every country. What other government in countries do have? They have very good response system. They have very good resources and reserve to take care of their people. But the big problem here is the government. Government doesn't care about the people. All the government care is to protect its power and to prolong it is power for the years to come. The government has millions and billions of dollars to invest on useless war, meaningless war, that they now are sitting at the same table and discussing after they wasted billions of dollars in hundreds of thousands of lives. But they don't have money to feed their own people. Their own people who are not really, who are not lazy, they're not dying because they are lazy or don't want to work or don't want to farm. It is just because of the natural disaster, the lack of rain. The key issue is there is no good structure in government structure in place to help the people. So the government have to predict or foresee what is coming and get prepared for that, to support the people, feed the people, move the people to the area that they can survive for a while, and if they want to come back, bring them back. So I guess it's a lack lack of structure, lack of good governance. That is really, we could avoid the days of hundreds of people and thousands of livestock if we have a good structure in place and a good governance. But all these days, that would have been avoidable. Most of them are avoidable. And the interesting part is that if you have seen last week where the Oromia regional president and the prime minister of the country went into a Bali region boasting about exporting wheat. It is really sad. We have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of livestock dead in the Borana region, and people dying, kids malnutrition, and down to the bones and the skeletons. But the prime minister out of touch, the Oromia regional president out of touch. They're trying to boast as if they have excess that they can export to other countries. It is really sad to see this. And the other, like you said, there is no international response to it too, because that area is sealed. They are really protecting for the information to not to come out. I was on one meeting last time where somebody really presented what is happening in that area and showed a lot of picture, but with a disclaimer that says nobody can take this picture or share this picture because the government strictly forbids that. How sad is that? You're not feeding, you're not taking care of your own people, and you also hide it from the eyes of the international community from not supporting because it affects your political, your image in the world. This is a disaster. This is a government failure. This is bad governance. We talked about this. There's no government for the people. This is a government for itself. So what is left then? We're left with small local charities, small local organizations that can make a little impact, but can't make a bigger impact on a big impact on a bigger scale. So because I know one person who went to that area and started talking to the people, taking pictures, and was put in prison in that region, in Borana area. The government is really protecting and all the information not coming out of that area just to protect this image. The simple thing they could do is take that wheat from Bali region, buy it from the farmers, and take it to that area and feed these people. It's not that complicated. Yes, they want to bring $1 by selling wheat. Is that really a priority when your own people are dying? So really what we can do is we have a lot of charity organization, whether it is Sikkomando, Wabima, Shanangibe, and all that. We can make a small impact, and we shouldn't ignore even the small impact that we can make by looking at the scale of the problem. If we can save 1 life, 2 lives, 3, 4, 5, that is meaningful. So as Oromo Nation, I guess we only have each other. So all the charities, organizations that we have should come together and at least make a little impact in supporting our people dying in that region.
Thanks so much. You reminded me by describing the nature of the government in that country, particularly when we refer to the Oromian government. And I think a couple of days ago, in relation to the Oromo Synod, the Oromia government came up with bold statement. Everything was there about federalism, about equality, about justice, democracy, and so on. And many people, tend, okay, that's very nice. But do you think that that kind of move is dependable, or are they going to turn back again the same way as usual?
Yeah. What do you trust these days? Starting from the prime minister all the way down to the local leaders, they say one thing today and then it's totally different tomorrow. Trust issue is the big thing with this government. A lie is actually a big problem with this government. White lie. Starting from the prime minister all the way to the locals. It's just, they are very calculative. Everything, to my opinion, everything that they do is calculated in a political sense. What would benefit their politics? You know, if they want to capture and garner the support of the Oromos. They just come out and say all those good words that capture people's imagination, people's aspiration, without really delivering anything on those words. What in the last 4 years, what did the Oromia region delivered for Oromo people? What did Abiy Ahmed delivered for Oromo people? They have said a lot. They said a lot when they came to power. After that, in everything, but there is no single thing that they delivered so far. So I know the president, Oromia regional president, came out and said a lot of good stuff and actually acting tough on all those old colonial system preachers or whatever he called them, but really, what is that going to do? Is that going to last? Is that going to really continue to bring change in the region? I don't think so. It's just a political flavor for the month or for a week, and then maybe we're going to be back at where we have been for the last 4 years.
Thanks so much. As you said, trust is the foundation of leadership, for that matter, and leaders should not, make promise. If they make promise, they have to do it. That was what has happened in 2018. There were promises, hopes, and finally they dropped those hopes and promises, and now the country is in this kind of turmoil. Itafa, because of the interest of time, do you have some kind of final remark at the end of the day?
I think my final remark is we are in a very critical time, I think, whether it comes to politics, religion, and everything. This is really a critical moment. My first message is to the clergies, the Oromia archbishops and the Oromia Synod archbishops. My message to them is to stand strong, stay strong, stand strong, be firm in your mission, in your belief, in your quest. Your aspiration is the aspiration of all the Oromo people. Yes, your aspiration is mainly religious, but it is not only religious. It has a long historical meaning, long historical implication. What you're requesting, what you're demanding, what you are structuring, what you're building right now will have an impact for generations to come. But if you back off of this mission, this quest, this aspiration, again, it will have a generational impact, actually negative impact on our nation.
And so their questions have been backed by the entire Oromo people and nations and nationalities in that country.
Exactly. There is nothing to be scared of. All 50 to 60 million Oromo is backing you, is in support of you, is standing with you. So you have a strong support. And nation and nationalities. It's not only Oromia, it's other nation and nationalities and other nationalities. You have the support. What you are asking is a fundamental right. What you're asking is not power, not resource. It is just your fundamental right, the right to worship in your own language, a right to worship in your own cultural context, the right to have the leadership that you want in your own region. There is nothing wrong with this. This is biblical. This is supported by the federal system of the land, the law of the land. You have all the rights, all the support, whether it's legal support, divine support, human support. You have every support by your side. Don't give up. Don't back on this mission. We are with you. And my request to the Abiy government and the Oromia regional president is uphold the law. These people have, by the law of the land, the right to establish their own synod, the right to worship in their own language, the right to worship in their own cultural context. We're not actually asking you to do us a favor. All we're asking you is to uphold the law of the land, which grant this, the federal law grants these people. The system grants the people to worship, to go to school, to do business in their own language and to practice within all their own cultural context. All we're asking you is we're not asking you to favor Oromo or do us a favor. All we're asking you is uphold the law of the land. And to all Oromo people, stand firm, support the Oromo Orthodox Synod in every way, in every means that we can. And thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Hussein.
With this, we conclude our discussion with Itafa, and for those of you who have vision, hopes, and professional critics, the door is open. Contact me through my Facebook. Itafa, that was a proud discussing with you. It's an honor, as usual, and thank you very much for your reflections. And again, see you next time.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein.
This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are esteemed. Stay with us.